Take care of everyone. I'll come back for you. Take them to the dungeon. When the rain stop, we continue.
Suddenly, a low growl echoed from the shadows. Before anyone could react, a jaguar sprang out from behind a tree. The man screamed, struggling beneath the weight of the beast. The jaguar clawed. The forest had gone quiet again. Ifaka stood at the edge of a rocky cliff, the wind brushing against his face as he looked out over the distant hills. Behind him, Naya and Kanu slept near a small fire, their bodies wrapped in dry leaves. Tommy leaned against the tree, sharpening a stick with a stone. They were free, but Ifaka's heart was not. In the silence, he still heard the cries of the women, the children, those who had not escaped when he did. Those still trapped in the balls of the land of the skulls. He remembered their faces. He remembered the dungeon, the fear, the chains, and in his bones, he knew it. He had to go back. Tommy looked up. You are thinking about them, aren't you? Ifaka nodded. They will kill you if you go back, Tommy said. You barely made it out alive the first time.
I won't let them die in chains,
Ifaka replied, eyes cold as stone.
Not while I still breathe.
Naya was at the stream fetching water. She smiled softly, humming as the cool water flowed around her hands. Wow. Then, a sharp whistle in the wind, an arrow flying fast, deadly and aimed straight at her. Ifaka shouted and dove through the air, arms stretched to shield her. Just before the arrow struck, Ifaka jolted awake, his body drenched in sweat. With heart pounding, he sat up, gasping, eyes wide. For a moment, he saw no one, no fire, no movement, no arrow.
Naya!
He called. No response. Fear gripped his chest. He jumped up and then he saw them. Naya was at the stream, just as in his dream, fetching water. Tommy stood beside her, watching. Beneath the tree where the fire had burned low, Kanu still slept peacefully. Ifaka walked quickly to her.
Naya,
he said, voice low and firm.
I have to go back.
She turned to him confused. Go back? To where?
To the land of the skulls. My people are still there. The women, the children. If I do nothing, I will never be able to live it myself.
Naya gently placed the pot on the ground and stepped closer, gripping his arms. Ifaka, are you out of your mind? She said, her voice trembling. Look at me. I am almost due. Who will stay by me? Who will protect us? Ifaka looked her straight in the eyes and whispered,
and what kind of man would I be if I let our people die in chains? I promise you, I will stay alive, Naya, and I will come back to you.
He turned to Tommy.
Take care of them. Protect them as I would.
Tommy nodded slowly, already understanding. Then Ifaka did something he had not done since the fall of Ubundu. He raised a hand to his lips and blew a sharp commanding whistle. From the trees, from the shadows, they emerged, the jaguar clan. Yes, majestic jaguars, sleek and powerful, their eyes glowing in the twilight. They moved silently through the undergrowth, muzzles rippling, fur shining beneath the moonlight, and among them, leading the pack, was the same jaguar that have carried Ifaka through the jungle after the raid. They did not growl, they bowed their heads before him. Ifaka was one of them now, marked by blood, blessed by survival. In a strange ancient tongue, one only the wild would understand, Ifaka spoke softly.
Guard my blood, guard my home.
The late jaguar lowered its body near Naya, shielding her with its massive frame, and then, without looking back, Ifaka turned toward the direction of the blood-stained mountains, where the land of the skulls sat beneath dark clouds. And with every step forward, the forest seemed to hold its breath, because Ifaka had returned, once as prey, but this time he was returning as a storm. The sun had risen over the jungle, its rays slicing through the thick canopy like golden blades. But Ifaka had not rested. He had run all night, barefoot, blood-streaked, and breathless. He moved like a ghost through the trees, vines, and shadows. His heart beat for those still trapped in chains. The women, the children, the elders. and he knew that with every delay, with every hour lost, the raiders will draw closer to slaughtering them all. His legs burned, his throat was dry. Still, he ran. By mid-morning, he felt pain by his side. The pain was too sharp to ignore. His vision blurred as sweat stung his eyes. It was hunger. Ifaka stumbled into a small clearing and collapsed near a twisted tree, gasping for air. Only then did it hit him. He had left with nothing, no food, no water, no weapon. Ifaka sat up quickly, cursing himself under his breath. The land of the skulls would not welcome him with empty hands. He needed to arm himself. He scanned the area. The jungle would provide. It always did. He found a fallen branch, strong, curved like a crescent. He stripped its bark, smoothed it with stone, and tied a vine across its ends, tightening it with the same skill he once used to teach Kanu how to trap birds. It would bend, it would hold. Next, the arrows. Ifaka broke narrow sticks, sharpened their tips against rough rock, and baked them over a slow fire to harden them. But a sharp arrow wasn't enough. He needed poison. Ifaka saw an old pond nearby. The elders once said it was where the jungle's ugliest frogs went to die. He found it, a still greenish pool buzzing with flies and covered in soft moss. Fat toads sat along the edge, unbothered by his presence. Ifaka picked two large ones with red spotted backs. Carefully, he scraped the pale yellow venom from behind their necks using a leaf, avoiding contact with his own skin. One by one, he dipped the arrowheads into the deadly liquid. Ifaka stared at the arrows, their blackened tips gleaming with silent promise. He had his bow, he had his arrows, he had his will. As he stood, a humming sound swept through the forest. The jungle buzzed with heat and noise. But one sound pulled at Ifaka's senses more than any other. A deep, low hum, steady, heavy, rising like a chant from the trees. Ifaka followed the sound carefully. His feet moved over soft moss and cracked leaves as he approached the sound, hand ready on the arrow. Then he saw it, a beehive, massive, hanging from a crooked tree, dripping with golden honey. Dozens of fat black jungle bees swarmed around it, their bodies pulsing with life and sting. Ifaka stood still, then smiled faintly to himself. Even the bees are busy with survival, he whispered before turning away. He had no time for sweetness, no time for distractions. There was only one thing left to do, to rescue the people of Ubundu. When the sun began to die and the world turned silver with moonlight, Ifaka saw it. The hills, steep, black, silent. It loomed above the trees like a sleeping monster, sharp stones at its feet, and bones scattered along the narrow path that led upward. Ifaka slowed, his chest rising and falling with the weight of his journey as he ascended the hill. This was it, the land of the skulls, the place where death wore many faces. Ifaka moved to the base of the mountain and hid himself behind the tall grass. The wind carried strange sounds from the village, distant drums, the crack of whips, muffled screams. He knew he was close, but how will he get in? He crouched low, studying the sharp ridges and narrow entrance paths that were guarded by stone watchtowers. Fires burned in steel cages at the entrance. Ifaka scanned the area carefully. Every path he saw was guarded. Every opening was watched. He was alone and badly outnumbered. Every corner was guarded. There was no opening, no weak point. Still, he whispered to himself, there must be another way in, because one thing was certain, he had not come this far to turn back. Then, a thought crept into his mind. He needed to be invisible. Quickly, Ifaka cut broad green leaves and wet vines, rubbing mud over his chest and arms. He wrapped the leaves around his body. The jungle had cloaked him once before. Now, it will do so again. Disguised, he began to move, slowly, silently. But when he got close, his heartbeat began to rise. Every path, every opening, every walkway was covered. Blades, arrows, eyes. There was no way in. For the first time since he left his family, he felt fear, real fear, not of dying, but of failing. He crouched in the dark, hands trembling, his body pressed into the soil.
God, help me.
He muttered. Then he heard a soft rustle. A small rat scurried past his feet. Ifaka froze as he watched as the rat sniffed its way across the path and squeezed itself into a crack in the ground. Ifaka's eyes widened.
A sign.
He whispered. He crawled toward the spot, careful not to draw attention. Gently, he pulled away the vines and loose earth. Beneath it was a hidden wooden hatch, aged and covered with moss. He tugged it open and without a second thought, Ifaka slid in and pulled the hatch back over himself, and the silence swallowed him. The narrow tunnel was damp, the air thick and warm. He crept slowly. The ceiling was slow, forcing him into a crouch. The further he went, the quieter it became. Finally, a faint glimmer of firelight appeared ahead. Ifaka emerged behind a crumbling wall inside the village, and what he saw surprised him. It was quiet, still, unbothered. The inside of the village was nothing like its exterior. No guards patrolled. The buildings were cracked and crooked, the stone paths scattered with bones and scraps. Ifaka moved quickly, his breath held tight in his chest. He remembered the layout. The dungeon was built deep within the old quarry, past a narrow corridor carved into the mountainside. He followed it. Still no guards, just the sound of dripping water and distant coughs. When he reached the prison cell entrance, no one was there. He stepped close to the iron gate and peered in. Dozens of bodies lay on the ground, silent, unmoving. His breath caught. Then one of them shifted slightly in sleep. They were alive. Ifaka closed his eyes in relief, but he dared not speak. Instead, he picked up a small stone and gently tapped it against the gate. Once, twice, no one woke. Then he heard it. Footsteps. A guard was coming. Quickly, Ifaka darted behind a stack of old weapons just as the guard passed. The man yawned, his sandals dragging against the ground. As he walked past, the keys at his waist jingled softly. Ifaka knew that he had to act. It was either now or never. Ifaka lunged from behind, wrapped his arm around the man's neck, and with a sharp twist, snapped it cleanly. The body dropped, but Ifaka caught the ring of keys before it hit the ground. He turned to the gate and began trying the keys one by one. His hands shook with urgency, and after several trials, one key gave way and the door creaked open. For the first time since he left, Ifaka felt a glimmer of hope. The rusted gate swung open with a groan, the sound barely louder than the beat of Ifaka's heart. He stepped into the cell, slow, careful, and alert. The air was heavy with sweat, sickness, and despair. Bodies lay curled together on the cold floor, clothed in torn rags, their faces sunken from hunger and fear. One of the captives stared, her eyes fluttered open, clouded at first, then wide. "Is this a dream?" she whispered, her voice hoarse.
No,
Ifaka said.
it's time to go home.
The sound of his voice stirred the others. One by one, weak heads lifted. Some blinked in confusion. Others gasped softly. And then someone spoke his name. "Ifaka!" The whisper rolled through the cell like wind through leaves. "Ifaka is here!" The captives began to sit up. Some cried. Some reached for him with trembling hands. Others could barely move. But the fire in their eyes had returned. He moved quickly now, helping them sit, helping them understand.
We don't have time,
He said.
When I say run, you run. Even if your legs fail you, you run.
A woman near the back raised a shaking hand. "My daughter, she's in the women's quarter. They separated us the moment we got here."
I'll find her.
Ifaka promised. But first, he turned and ran back to the guard's body outside the cell. He dragged it into the shadows and took the man's dagger. When he returned, some of the captives were weak. So weak that they had to be carried, but still they stood. They rose like broken trees reaching for sunlight. Then Ifaka led them out, silent as smoke, through the same corridor and stone that once held them prisoners. The air was thick with silence. The storm had not yet arrived, but its eyes had opened. Ifaka stood at the tunnel's mouth, the cold air brushing past his face. Behind him, the prisoners waited, silent, bruised, but standing. Once they had entered, he turned to them.
You all are not strong enough to make it to the village on your own,
he whispered.
But just at the base of the mountain, there is a cave. I covered the entrance with bamboo sticks and leaves. It's hidden, safe.
They listened with wide, weary eyes.
When you get there, go inside, stay quiet, don't make a sound, no fire, no movement. When I return, I'll give you the signal.
He scanned the group. There were a few who still stood with strength in their limbs. 3 men, lean but upright.
You, and you,
he said, pointing to them. The men stepped forward.
You'll guide the others, protect them with your lives.
He reached out into the belt he took from the guard and pulled out 3 small daggers, placing one in each of their hands.
They are weak now. You must be strong for them.
The men nodded without words. Then, like ghosts in the night, Ifaka began to lead them one by one through the tunnel. They crouched low, feet silent, moving with slow grace through the earth's belly. Ifaka kept checking behind him, helping those who limped or lost their balance. When they reached the far end, Ifaka peered out. The mountain slope was quiet. The way to the cave was clear. He helped them out, gently, guiding the wounded through tall grass and under the safety of night. He watched until the last one disappeared into the trees, supported by the others. Only then did he breathe, and then he turned back. There was still one more to save. He tightened the straps of his bow across his back, checked the poison on his arrows, and slipped once more into the shadows of the village. This time, he was not rescuing a group. He was hunting for a single soul, and he would not leave without her. Ifaka moved like smoke through the village shadows, hugging the stone walls as he crept toward the far end, the women's quarters. He crouched behind a low fence, eyes scanning. He saw 2 guards, one patrolling, one dozing near a flickering torch. He waited, breathing slowly. When the patrol turned his back, Ifaka slipped forward and struck the sleeping guard. He snatched the keyring from the man's belt and opened the hut. Inside, it was quiet, too quiet. He pushed the door open and stepped in. A dozen women lay huddled on the ground, weak and terrified. At the far corner, curled beside an earthen pot, was the little girl, barely 6, thin and shaking. The moment she saw him, she gasped. He raised a finger to his lips.
Shh, I'm here for you,
he whispered. The others stayed silent, stunned. Ifaka walked over, lifted the girl gently onto his back and turned to leave. But then, a sharp whistle split the silence. The patrolling guard had found the body. Shouts echoed across the village. Ifaka ran. He bolted past the huts. The girl held on tightly, her breath hot against his neck. He climbed over a fence, slid down a muddy slope and charged toward the hidden exit, the tunnel. He quickly slid in with the girl on his back. Inside, it was dark, but it was safe. He crawled forward, whispering to her,
We are almost there, just a little more.
The sound of shouting faded behind them, and ahead, faint moonlight glimmering through the exit. A loud, sharp horn blasted through the night air, long and angry. Its sound echoed across the mountain walls, waking the entire village. Torches lit up instantly. Guards scrambled, shouts ran out in every direction as panic took hold. Something was wrong. From the shadows of his shrine, the high chief priest walked quickly towards the palace. Inside a towering chamber of bones and carved stone, King Guma sat up, eyes heavy with sleep. The sound of the horn had reached him too. A moment later, the doors opened and in stepped the high chief priest, robed in skull-beaded garments, his face dark with anger.
Your Majesty, our sacrifices have escaped,
the priest said coldly. King Guma sat forward, his eyes now sharp.
Escaped? How? I do not know, my king, but the dungeon is empty. So is the woman's hut, and 2 guards are dead.
The king slowly rose to his feet. His voice rumbled low.
I thought the whole village was captured. I thought the weak were fed to the hunt.
The priest bowed his head.
They were my king, but this feels different. It's not rebellion, it's precision.
The king narrowed his eyes.
The hunting squad, are they back?
The priest swallowed.
None have returned.
For a moment, silence fell like a stone. Then King Guma nodded slowly.
Enough games!
He turned to his guard commander.
Release the giant!
The room went still. The guards by the wall exchanged glances. Even the priest stiffened.
But he's chained.
The priest whispered.
Not anymore.
The king replied.
The storm has returned to my gates.
King Guma growled.
And it's time we answered with thunder.
The moment Ifaka stepped out of the tunnel, the cold air hit his face and he saw it. Dawn was near. The blackness of the night was slowly turning grey at the edges. The sky above the jungle had begun to shift. He had little time left. They had to move before light betrayed them. Without wasting a second, Ifaka took off, running toward the bush ahead, leading the way through a narrow trail carved by memory. As he approached the hidden slope near the mountain's base, he whistled once, sharp and low. Two men emerged from the cave entrance.
Get them across the mountain, now!
The men nodded and began guiding the fled captives up the rocky slope. Ifaka helped the girl to her mother, who cried quietly and held her child close. They were almost safe. Then a sound behind them, a deep distant boom, like footsteps, but heavier. The ground trembled faintly. Ifaka's instinct screamed. He turned to Naruto, one of the men he had chosen earlier.
Take them across the mountain. If I don't return, don't wait.
Naruto nodded with fear in his eyes. Ifaka grabbed his bow and slid back into the shadows of the forest. Behind him, far off, something massive moved through the trees. The king had released the unthinkable, and the giants had begun to walk. Dawn had come. Ifaka crouched behind a fallen log, his eyes fixed on the trees ahead. The birds were silent, branches cracked in the distance. Then he saw it. A giant, towering, bare-chested, skin thick like old bark. Its arms were the size of tree trunks, and bones hung from ropes around his waist. Its eyes, large, sunken, and red, scanned the forest floor. It sniffed the air, then turned straight toward Ifaka. Ifaka's grip tightened on his bow. He slid a poisoned arrow into the string. Heart pounding. Could poison even stop this? He didn't know, but he knew one thing. If he didn't distract it, the cave wasn't safe. He aimed, held his breath, and fired. The arrow struck the giant in the shoulder. It roared loud enough to shake the trees and began to charge. Ifaka ran, not in fear, but to lead the beast away from those he had sworn to protect. The real hunt had begun. Ifaka ran, each step pounding against the earth, his breath sharp in his chest. Behind him, the giant charged, its roar tearing through the morning air. So loud the trees themselves seemed to tremble. Branches cracked, birds screamed, the forest trembled. Then came more voices, warrior shouts, echoing through the trees. The giant's roar had alerted the entire village. Ifaka didn't look back. He didn't need to. They were coming. Dozens of feet thundered behind him. Warriors, raiders, hunters. Ifaka zigzagged through the trees as arrows zipped past him, some thudding into trunks inches from his face. But he was not running blindly. He knew where he was going. The beehive. He ducked under low branches, leapt over logs, and finally, there it was, buzzing and alive. The warriors behind him came closer, shouting. Ifaka grabbed the sharp rock from the ground as he ran and flung it with full force toward the hive. Crack! The hive broke. In seconds, a storm of angry black bees exploded from the hive, swarming toward the warriors in a chaotic blur of wings and venom. Screams erupted behind him, men slapping their faces, falling to the ground, clawing at their skin as the bees attacked without mercy. Ifaka didn't stop. He kept running, but the giant did not fear bees. Its massive body burst through the swarm, pushing past the chaos. Ifaka reached the old hunter's path. He leapt across the deep gorge just as the giant lunged after him. Crunch! The ground gave way beneath its foot, and the beast tumbled into the pit below. Dust rose, stones tumbled. Ifaka stepped carefully to the edge and looked down. The giant groaned, wounded, glaring up at him, and then it spoke.
You are the one who escaped the hunt.
Ifaka's heart skipped. This was no mindless monster. It remembered him, but there was no time to reflect. The forest still burned with movement. The warriors had scattered, but more would come. Ifaka turned away from the pit and ran again. He had no intention of dying today. Ifaka sprinted back through the jungle, his chest rising and falling with urgency. He stopped briefly where the battle had raged. The bees had done their work. Most of the warriors lay dead, swollen and lifeless. The few who survived had fled, vanished into the forest, retreating back to the land of the skulls. There was no time to celebrate. Ifaka turned and ran, feet slapping against the wet earth. He needed to reach his family. He hoped they were safe. Deep within the jungle, Naya cried out in pain. She had gone into labor. Her body trembled. Sweat drenched her face. There was no one to help, just a few animals from the jaguar clan standing guard, Tommy and little Kanu, who clung to his mother's hand in confusion. I don't know what to do, Tommy panicked. I'll find help, he said, and without waiting, he darted into the forest. Kanu stayed close, holding Naya's hand as she groaned through the pain. Tommy ran as fast as he could, ducking under vines and leaping over roots. Then, footsteps. Tommy froze. From the shadows, figures emerged, faces he recognized. The rescued captives. Tommy's eyes lit up. You came back, he shouted. The villagers rushed toward him. Quickly, Tommy led them to the cave where Naya lay. As the jaguar clan saw them approach, the great cat stepped aside silently. They sensed these ones came in peace. Two women ran forward without hesitation and knelt beside Naya. Bring her here, one said. There's shade and clean leaves by the stream. They carried Naya gently while others began to settle, finally resting, finally safe. And for the first time in days, hope had returned, not just with Ifaka, but through Naya's cry of life. Ifaka continued running, heart pounding, not from fear, but from longing. The trees blurred around him. The sun now climbed fully into the sky, bathing everything in golden light. He had survived, he had fought, and now he was going home. When he reached the hidden cave clearing, his breath caught in his throat as he stepped into the light. There, beneath a tree, surrounded by villagers, was Naya. She was lying on a bed of leaves, her face glowing with sweat and relief. Beside her, wrapped in clothes, lay a newborn child, cradled in her arms. Ifaka froze. Tears welled in his eyes as he dropped to his knees. Naya looked up, smiling weakly. You came back just in time. He crawled to her side, kissed her forehead, then looked at the baby, so small, so perfect, wrapped in peace, though born from war. A boy, strong. The villagers watched in quiet joy. Tommy stood by Kanu, both smiling. One of the older women leaned close and said softly, "What shall we call him?" Ifaka looked into the child's eyes and whispered,
Ifaka!
Meaning, he who returns. As the breeze passed through the trees and the jaguar clan faded back into the forest, a quiet truth settled over them all. Ubundu had fallen, but its spirit had risen again. If you enjoyed the story and would like to see more interesting stories, please consider subscribing to this channel, not forgetting to turn on the bell notification icon so that once another video is being posted, you will be the first to be notified. You can also check out these videos here. I promise you won't be disappointed. Till we meet again in my next video, remain blessed.